History reserves a very exclusive pantheon for its most elite soldiers. The finest warriors of every era are the legendary symbols of their time. The Roman legions of the 1st century, the infamous Keshig of Genghis Khan's mighty horde, the armored knights of the medieval Norman conquest, the surgical Navy SEALs of the modern American Empire. These mighty military units bring honor and glory to their country, put fear in the heart of their enemies, and become forever immortalized. Amongst that list of legendary regiments, Napoleon's infamous Imperial Old Guard stands at attention. Napoleon's Imperial Guard was more than just a military unit. They were a living legend of the 19th century, and one of the most iconic military forces in European history, composed of the most experienced veterans of France's Grande Armée. They were the elite of the elite, renowned for their unwavering loyalty and almost mythical status. Established by the Emperor himself, the Old Guard, as they were known to him, was the backbone and personification of his rule and power.
If you want to catch more videos on Napoleonic legends like this, be sure to quickly subscribe to our channel, like this video, and let us know in the comments what you want to see next. There are hundreds of similar videos in our history playlist. The Imperial Guard was not something which a man could just sign up for. To be eligible for consideration meant he had already established himself as one of the finest soldiers in France. Each member of the Old Guard was a highly trained and experienced soldier, and they formed a formidable sight on the battlefield when mustered into regiments. They were taught to fight unlike any other soldier in the French army. Any cowardly tendencies or otherwise cautious habits would be thoroughly purged through intense training before ever reaching a battlefield. This training often included advanced bayonet and hand-to-hand combat techniques. The Old Guard earned its fearsome reputation through the many military engagements of the Napoleonic Wars, from the Battle of Austerlitz to Dresden and their famous final deployment at Waterloo. The admission requirements were demanding and brutally strict. In order to be eligible just for consideration, soldiers needed to be quite experienced. Over 10 years of military service was required for entry. In the early days of the Empire, this meant soldiers who had fought their way through the to's and fro's of the French Revolution, and even a few had fought for the Bourbon kings before that. They also needed to have completed at least 3 full campaigns. It wasn't enough to just be interested. Soldiers had to be true veterans of 18th and 19th century warfare, its infantry fronts, its marching columns, and its ration lines. Recruits had to have accomplished all of this before the age of 35, which was the maximum age of a man to be accepted. The Old Guard certainly wasn't the youngest regiment, but these men certainly weren't old either. At least most of them were not. Next, these men had to be giants. The minimum height for the Grenadiers of the Guard was 5 feet 10, which is tall even today, but for the time it was massive, way above average. And by the way, the myth of Napoleon being short was largely British propaganda. He was actually average height for the time, about 5'6", 5'7". But surrounded by these giants, he simply looked quite small. And this was just the minimum height. Most were well beyond 6 feet tall. When they finally wore their bearskin cap, an 18-inch tower of fur that made them loom over all around them, they looked like beasts. Many were at eye level with the steeds of their comrades. Compared to hussar skirmishers, of which many were built like horse jockeys, guardsmen seemed like another species of man altogether. But it wasn't only their size that set them apart. Their appearance had eccentric and personal touches which established them as an elite club. The Guard was exempt from the regulations which dictated the short hair and shaved faces of the Grande Armée. If you looked closely at a grizzled veteran of the Guard, you'd notice 2 strange things. First, the Old Guard kept the queue, which was a powdered ponytail. It was a style from the old monarchy, hopelessly outdated by 1804, but they wore it as a badge of honor. It said, "I've been here since the beginning. I am tradition." Second was their jewelry. Many guardsmen wore gold earrings. This wasn't for fashion. It was a grim insurance policy. Perhaps you've heard the stories explaining the reasons why stereotypical pirates wear gold earrings. They were essentially a signed check made out to cover the cost of their death. The idea was that if you were killed in a foreign land, far from home, the value of the gold earring would pay for a proper Christian burial, or at least pay a priest to say a mass for your soul. They carried their funeral costs in their earlobes, ready for death at any moment on campaign. And the guard would have looked like a band of pirates as well, if not for their sharp imperial uniforms, which visualized the elite, concise unification under which they operated. If you haven't seen our other Napoleonic content, don't miss All the Emperor's Men, Legends of Napoleon's Cavalry, and Nelson's Last Stand, Battle Report from Trafalgar, along with hundreds of other videos in our history playlist. Channel members get to vote on topics of future videos, access new videos early, talk Napoleon and history with myself and others on Discord, receive merch discounts, and even personally choose topics of future videos made custom just for them. Become a member on YouTube or Patreon today. If you'd like to support us directly, you can cash app the motion visual here and let us know how to use your donation. Your support means everything to us as we continue to fill out our ranks. Lasalle distinguished himself in 1795 in the War of the First Coalition at the Battle of Rivoli. With just 26 horsemen, Lasalle rode out bravely, charging towards the Austrian line. This daring feat caused an entire battalion of the enemy army to throw down their arms and flee in panic, allowing the French to capitalize and rout the enemy's center. Capturing a single flag was the type of accomplishment a cavalryman could boast about until the end of his days. That day, 11 enemy flags were captured, 5 of those by Lasalle himself. After the battle, all the trophies were piled up before Napoleon. Lasalle lay exhausted a few feet away on top of his 5 flags. Napoleon said, "Enjoy your sleep on your flags, Lasalle, for it is well deserved." Lasalle would be a glorious sight and a larger-than-life character in the campaigns of the Grande Armée thereafter. Lasalle's feats were the stuff of legend. At Seton in 1806, with only a few hundred hussars, he bluffed a fortress garrison of 5,000 Prussians into surrender, simply by riding up, demanding immediate capitulation, and threatening to unleash an army which didn't exist. The ruse worked, and the fortress fell without a single shot. At Wagram in 1809, Lasalle led charge after charge against the Austrian lines. True to form, he was in the thick of it, saber flashing, his pipe clenched between his teeth. His final moments came in a storm of musket fire, and was cut down while rallying his men. Napoleon, on hearing of his death, lamented, "A man like Lasalle cannot be replaced."